Behind the Shades.
So you touched on the passion. Take us through the passion that you shared with me, the four truths. Describe them and what do they mean to you?
Yeah, the four truths are I call them the bedrock of my soul. They're, I think, just a good place to start to build a quality life off of. And I guess I should sort of back up. I don't want your audience to think that I have all the answers. I don't. I'm telling you that I've been through some things and I've learned these four truths. And I'm just offering them to people as if they work for you, take them and incorporate them in your life. If they don't, then find what your truths are in life. So I have them here on a post-it note in my office. They're one sentence each. So I see them multiple times during the day and they constantly get reinforced in my mind. So the first one is control your mind or your mind is going to control you. The second one is embrace the pain and the difficulty that we all experience in life and use that pain and difficulty to make you a stronger and more resilient individual. The third one I look at kind of as a legacy type of truth, and it's this: what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. And then the fourth one, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And like I said, these are kind of the bedrock of my soul. They're just, I think, a place, they're an anchor that I know they're not going to change. They're not immovable. They're not things that I'm going to say, oh, that doesn't matter anymore. No, these things have mattered my entire life. I just had an opportunity to sort of codify them and say, okay, for me, this is what my heart says. This is what my soul says is important in life. And then I guess we can break them down if you want to go through them a little bit.
Absolutely, because the fourth one, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. I remember when I saw that, when you shared it with me, it reminded me of the story I shared earlier today with you, where I didn't have both my parents growing up, and I had some struggles in the church and within my religion and things of that nature, which led me to disconnect and feel confused. But I wanted more out of my life. And then you shared the story about the 75-year-old grandmother and the 13-year-old kid, and when you bring them home, there's that struggle there as well. I didn't want to be another statistic. I want to make sure that I found success in a way that represented me, as well as made me feel good, as well as the outcome was I survived it, I grew from it, I understood it. Now let me help others. So that's why that fourth one resonated with me. Do you have a favorite out of the four, or one that you feel is more impactful in your life than the others?
Yeah, I used to. The answer to that question was I used to think no, that they were all equal, that all of them were of the same importance. And the more I've learned, the more I've read, the more I've kind of grown. I think the first one really is the most important. Control your mind, or your mind is going to control you. When I was in high school, I had three knee surgeries. And I remember when I went back playing basketball after those knee surgeries, I remember my brain was putting all kinds of negative thoughts into my mind. Things like, hey, you're probably a step slower since your surgeries, and college coaches aren't going to be interested in recruiting you. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I am still playing at an elite level, and coaches are still reaching out about the possibility of playing for their college or university. I learned early that I needed to sort of flip the switch, change the script of what was going on inside my brain. And I remember the Cleveland Clinic did a study, I don't know how many years ago, sort of about brain function. And they said that on any given day, we have about 60 to 70,000 thoughts that pass through our mind, most of which we don't even pay attention to. And only about 3,500 of those thoughts are new thoughts, things that we haven't thought about before, we didn't think about yesterday. And our brain operates at a speed of about 1,000 words a minute. Now, I'm old enough that I took typing when I was in high school. 40 words a minute in typing got you an A. So 1,000 words a minute is just something that is so, I can't even think about that. And the other thing about the brain is it produces enough energy to light a 25 watt light bulb, which I thought was interesting in and of itself. The problem with most of us, and I've done this, is that we think with our fears and our insecurities instead of using our minds. I mean, I know I've done this. Like, oh, I'd like to do that. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe I don't have enough information, or what will people think about me if I fail? That's thinking with our fears and our insecurities. That's not thinking with our minds. And I always tell, especially when I speak to young people, if there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you believe you're supposed to do, but it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did. They're going to be those things you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them.
And regret is something that impacts all of us, and it's very damaging. I know you can have a dream, and the dream could be, I want to be president. I want to save the world. I want to be the best father in the world. I want to be the best husband in the world. And you allow anxiety, maybe hesitation, to prevent you from your dream, and then you regret it afterwards, and that regret eats away at you and it stays within you for years and years on end. And it reminds me of this movie that I used to watch where you had someone who they were so hesitant to display their skill. They're a master painter, right? They painted beautiful, beautiful artwork, and they didn't ever get to share that passion or that skill with the rest of the world, and they lived with regret, and it led them to alcoholism. It led them to drugs, it led them to all these other things. So you have their talent and the lack of ability to show it to the world destroying them from within. Do you have those types of conversations when you're discussing with other people to help them to understand how to navigate through their life?
Yeah, the easiest way, and it really is simple. It's hard to do, but it's simple. People ask me, how do you control your mind? How do you callous your mind to deal with pain and discomfort in our life? And I always tell them the easiest way to do that is to do things you don't want to do. I mean, we know this. We know that our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. So to the brain, the status quo, the way things are right now, hey, it's comfortable, it's familiar, just leave it alone. The problem with that is the only way we're going to grow, the only way we're going to get better, the only way we're going to improve is if we step outside those comfort zones and do things that make us uncomfortable. And I think the other thing that gets us in trouble is we try to control things that are really outside of our control. I remember when I was in college, I went to a military college, the Citadel, and we had a president one year who was a former admiral in the Navy. He'd been a fighter pilot, a naval aviator during the Vietnam War, had been shot down, spent 8 years in a prisoner of war camp. And somebody asked him at an event, and I didn't spend a lot of time around him, he was the president of the college, but somebody asked him who survived that brutality, that abuse, that torture. And he said, well, let me tell you who didn't survive. He said, it wasn't the big, tall, strong, tough guys that thought that they could handle any kind of abuse or torture. And this was interesting as well. He said the other group that didn't survive were the optimists. You know, these were people that thought that they would be rescued or let go by Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter, and Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter would come and go, and they wouldn't be rescued or let go. And he said those people died of a broken heart. He said the people that survived were those who understood what they could control and controlled it. And according to him, basically, as prisoners of war, the only thing they could control were their thoughts in their mind and the breathing in their lungs. Everything else was at the discretion of the enemy. And I think that's where we get in trouble. We try to control, we try to pile on all these things that are totally outside of our ability to control things. And that leads to anxiety, that leads to depression, that leads to, you know, us with the mindset of, I can't do this, I'm a failure. And if you understand what you can control in your life and control that and let the other stuff take care of it, I think you get to a point where, okay, I may not be able to be successful, however you define that term today, but knowing that I'm doing the right thing, maybe next month or next year or 2 years from now, I will get to that point. But I think the other thing we deal with is that I need instant gratification. I need it immediately. I need it now. I need to be successful. And if I don't get it, somehow I'm a failure. I love the quote by Usain Bolt, probably the fastest man in the world. He said, I spent 4 years training to run 9 seconds. He said, and people give up on their dreams, give up on their hopes after 2 months.